Porsche Exchange, it's all about creating a legendary ownership experience that embodies our guests' lifestyle. Our Porsche service team utilizes cutting-edge technology that delivers a transparent service visit and keeps us in constant contact with our guests. And I can't think of anyone more qualified to work on your Porsche, new or classic, than our Porsche certified technicians. Whether you're a longtime guest or new to our dealership, I welcome you to experience legendary at the Porsche Exchange. If you're a Porsche owner looking for reliable, convenient service without leaving the comfort of your home or office, look no further and take advantage of the Exchange at Home complimentary pickup and drop-off service exclusively at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park.
The first two races in North America were tracks where drivers may have been able to pull knowledge from real-life experience. However, it may be a bit more rare to find drivers who have set foot at this circuit. Suzuka is legendary, but with it being all the way on the other side of the globe, will it be too foreign for some to master? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 10 Pro Class live here on Podium Esports. Hi, my name is Joey Atterbury, and with me in the booth tonight is Rachel Whiteford. Cameron Aubernon is on social media, and Ryan Bauer is producing while using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But before we get to the racing, Series 10 is brought to you by the Porsche Exchange, which has been family owned and operated for over 40 years. Located on the North Shore of Chicago, the Porsche Exchange has grown to be the largest volume Porsche dealership in the entire Midwest. Along the way, they've won the Porsche Premier Dealership Award for many years in a row and has been chosen to be one of the few Porsche exclusive manufacturer dealerships in the entire country. Find out more at 4Porsche.com. That's the number 4Porsche.com, or follow at Porsche Exchange on Instagram. Also, Six Sigma Sim Racing is proud to announce the Season 10 Clean Driver Award. One driver in each PCA sim racing class will win a Six Sigma Sim Racing $250 merchandise gift certificate. This goes to whoever earns the fewest incident points and license penalty points from their best 6 races this season. For more information, head over to sixsigmasimracing.com. Well, Rachel, I mentioned that we're here in Suzuka. This place is known to be very technical, but really loved by everyone who goes here. Tell us a little bit more about this place.
Well, Suzuka is a very historic track, of course, and it was developed by Honda as a permanent circuit in the Mie Prefecture in the late 1950s. It was a test track for the Honda company, and it was designed by Dutchman John Hans Hogenholz. It's a, of course, figure-8 layout with a 1.2 kilometer long back straight passing over the front section by means of an overpass. It's one of only 2 FAA Grade 1 licensed tracks that have a figure-8 layout, the only other one being Fiorano circuit in Italy. In 1983, a chicane was inserted in the last curve to slow cars. That is, of course, the famous Casio Triangle in the last sector. This track, of course, is a capacity of 155,000 people. It's hosted Formula 1, GT touring cars, Super Formula, FR Japan, and GT World Challenge. It's 5.8 kilometers in length, or 3.6 miles, and has 18 corners. Its current lap record is still held by Lewis Hamilton from 2019 in the Mercedes W10 of a 1 minute 30. These cars, though, will be going a lot slower.
Yeah, they are production-based cars, not those Formula 1 fast machines out there, but they are no slouch in their own right. And going through that famous 130R here, and while we're on track topics, we're going to be doing 60 minutes here tonight for the Pro Class race. Going to be a rolling start, and as you see on the screen, everybody is in the 911 GT3 Cup cars. That's the 992 model Porsche. Everybody is in the same cars, and going to have just the standard iRacing penalty points out here. Drive through at 17x, disqualification at 25x, but I think the biggest thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on is the 65% maximum fuel capacity that all of these drivers will be on. We'll talk about it a little bit more as the race develops. Well, Rachel, that means there will be a pit stop involved later.
Yeah, we're expecting about 40 minutes in to go down pit road. The time may vary slightly earlier, slightly later, about lap 20-ish ballpark. Of what we expect to be about 28 laps here tonight. These guys will not be able to go the whole way, and we often say it's going to be easier to go lighter for longer, so a late pit stop is expected, but it doesn't mean someone can't go off strategy and try something sooner if they're in heavy traffic. Great shot there of the motor car sliding in front of the camera, wanting to get a good side-on shot, but we're expecting a good race tonight. This track always breeds exciting racing and some dramatic drafting effects, of course. We'll see some drama, I suspect, in the S's, and, of course, the Casio curve, and, of course, up through Dunlop and the Degners. It's going to be interesting, though, to see what these guys will actually be able to manage in what can be a daunting circuit.
And it looks like qualifying has officially wrapped up out on the racetrack. So what we're going to do right now is going to bring you our starting grid for this pro class. And can't say I'm surprised. Pole sitter and winner at VIR last time out, Wyatt Gooden, putting in the fastest lap, 201.926. But look at Michael Kuholik right there. Only a few hundredths of a second going to be joining him on the front row there in second place. Then we got Jesse Lyon here in third, Justin Sang there fourth place, Trace Drawhorn fifth, Nick Faccioli sixth, Christopher Pye seventh, Leif Peterson eighth, Enrico Gregorato in ninth, and Ed Eisenring in 10th.
11th place tonight is going to be Mark Disto with Nick Marano in 12th. Garrett Taylor 13th, Ryan Cowley is 14th, James Vansnick is 15th, Dave Craig 16th, Chris Braun 17th, Bandia Paddy in 18th place, Rich Minkler is in 19th, Dale Green is 20th.
We do have more cars on the racetrack. Looks like there's going to be 29 cars out there and going to have a short pace lap. They're already gridded up, and a reminder that PCA Sim Racing's social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. To subscribe, key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. Well, Rachel, got a little bit of a preview with the other class just the other night, but here we are with the pro class. At VIR, the top 10 qualifiers also finished inside the top 10. I think the competition here is super tight. What do you expect to see here, especially from these front runners?
I think what we're going to see is a very strategic race. You can't race Suzuka without really focusing heavily on that strategy, and track placement, of course, is important. The likes of Kahola, Gooden, Lyon, Sang, Drawhorn, Fasciolo, Pies, Peterson. There's a lot of top runners in this series. Most of the field, in fact. It could go many ways. But the fact is, we're going to have to find out at the end, because Suzuka doesn't answer questions easily.
Very technical racetrack, and if you put a step wrong out here, it tends to bite pretty hard. And shortened pace lap, that means the car is already going through that final chicane known as the Casio Triangle. And Wyatt Gooden, the number 18 car, has control of the field as you see this long 29 car field still struggling to get packed up here on the racetrack, still maintaining pace car speed. And it looks like we've got a green flag on the racetrack. We accelerate through the gears into a very daunting turn one, still side by side for Gooden and Kuholik, and actually a little bit of door banging between the two, and now we've got contact between Jesse Lyon.
Huge contact there. Jesse Lyon, like you said, started the main part of that. Lyon on the inside, not doing anything particularly bad here, but we do see on the outside, after being pushed wide, the 62 of Kuholik comes in, contacts Lyon, sends him sideways. We have further contact with, I believe, the 188 there, the 913, that's Peterson, and Sang involved in that, as is, I believe, the car here. I'm looking down at the number, the 115, the 929 as well. That's Eisenring. Oh, wow, this one got big foul.
Yeah, and it's pretty allowing Wyatt Gooden right now to really stretch it out. It's kind of who made it through that wreck, because there was countless cars that really got held up. That was positions number 2 and 3 that got turned around, and ooh, here we got another spin at the hairpin the first time. A tricky spot to get the car slowed all the way down. The weight on the front end as well as the cold tires not doing you any favors on the racetrack. And right now, to kind of set the landscape for everybody, Wyatt Gooden, our pole sitter, has ran away out front. Trace Drawhorn currently sitting second place. Chris Pies third. Enrico Gregarito in fourth. And Jesse Lyon, who was actually involved in that early accident, in the fifth place position, albeit several seconds kind of separating each of these runners.
Yeah, that was Nick Milano, who we saw spun around there in the old hairpin. But yeah, Trey Drawhorn, second place here, as we already have a huge gap for Gooden, just because he wasn't involved in what just happened there. I suspect race control will be on top of that one real quick. We'll find out what happened, but oh boy, there's about 7 or 8 front runners involved in that incident there. That's going to have some knock-on effects for us. Never mind the fact that Gooden is clear of the draft range here already. 1.6 seconds on Drawhorn, 5th to 2nd in a lap, 7th to 3rd for Pies, and 9th to 4th for Gregarito as well. This just shuffled everything. We would have 16th to 6th, 18th to 7th here. Bandiapaji and Craig up in the middle of this thing in the top 10.
Well, we're going to get a shot of this replay, and what I want you to do is watch these front two cars, specifically the black car. I believe that is going to be our second place runner, Kuholik, out there. He's going to get tagged by Jesse Lyon, who's just down on the inside of the racetrack. And look at the pileup that happens behind. This is the front running cars, and when you're stacked up 25th place back here, you just got nowhere to go.
Yeah, no, you haven't got anywhere to go. That really kind of bottled things. It was a terrible location for it. A single moment led to that much chaos just by virtue of where it happened and in the position in the corner. So unfortunate, really, guys were trying to accelerate out of the corner as they really came into that. Kind of blind with all the traffic, so will be one of those racing deals sometimes. Got to race control, this involves the 913, the 929, the 62, 115, 188, and 62 cars. Those being Peterson, Eisenring, Kaholich, Lyon, Sang, and again Kaholich. For some reason we heard him twice. But it's unfortunate. I'm sure they'll take care of this. We'll get you the news once we have it. But onto the racing we do have on track, and there's still a lot to play for. In fact, it has shuffled dramatically. That's going to be exciting to see how this plays.
Well, I mentioned it pre-race is that the top 10 that qualified at VIR finished inside the top 10, and it certainly doesn't look that way here at Suzuka, at least in the first 4 minutes that we've seen on the racetrack right now. And here's this battle. This is Nick Faccioli chasing Ed Eisenring for the 8th place position on the racetrack. And I would say probably the biggest story of the race right now, even though we're only 5 minutes in, is Michael Kuholich back there in 16th place. Down 14 positions, he was starting on the front row. We'll see if Michael can get back up on the horse and get some of those positions back on the racetrack, as he still has 55 minutes. And speaking of, here is Michael giving us a great onboard shot here. And Rachel, Michael's looking to use an ultra-wide screen. There's various different sim racing setups out there.
There are, and the ultra-wide screen is a great option to go for if you like that kind of thing. So there are guys who run the triple screen options, there are guys who run VR, single regular monitors. There's so many options. The large curve monitors are a great decision there for some drivers. It really does work quite well, and it obviously is working for him. And right now we're seeing a lot of this racing going on through the old hairpin section, coming up now towards 200R. And some of these guys really are putting some good times in so far, but the gap has really still grown. Drawhorn has dropped back. It's now nearly 2 seconds to Gooden. Here's Facciolo, Los Angeles region driver. He's currently running in 9th place. Started 6th. He was involved in the incident, but he's held himself in the top 10. Still good opportunity. But look at this, Paddy Patterson in 10th, just behind him. He's up from 24th on the grid. And that was wreck.
That's a huge, I mean, really, look at this entire group, really from probably 6th place all the way to 12th, and it's huge movers. David Craig up there in the position number 6, 996 car, up 10. Bandiapaji there in 7th place, up 11 positions. Then you mentioned here, Paddy Patterson up 14, Rick Reinsberg he's up 11. Jake Faulkner up 11 as well. So all of these kind of runners right here in this mid-pack up significant positions, and you got to think some of that might have been getting through that turn 1, turn 2 wreck efficiently. Here we got
Exactly. Sorry, that wreck was one. If you navigate things like that, you can benefit hugely, and it will always be a good factor. Trying to avoid incidents like this rather than trying to duck through it as fast as possible is always really the beneficial move from what we see. Trying to rush through, it just hurries you to the scene of the crash.
Oh no, and you were just mentioning this driver right here, Paddy Patterson, had a great race going, but unfortunately it all unraveled there for him in turn 1, turn 2, gonna fall back down the order. But the good thing is I don't see any damage on that Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, so Patterson will get back out there and start turning more laps. And let's get a little check on our race leader up here, Wyatt Gooden. Now, Wyatt has started to stretch things out. Looks like he's 2 seconds now clear of Trace Drawhorn and just kind of laying down the laps, and things are still very early days right now. We aren't even into the what I consider the meat and potatoes race. You look at it, they are still kind of getting into the rhythm out here at Suzuka, and at this kind of racetrack, I think getting in the rhythm is exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. And if you're in his position and you've got that advantage, find the groove, ride it, and take the wave as far as it will let you go. Because sometimes you'll ride those small waves for weeks and weeks on end, and it's that one time you catch the big one, you've got to let it go as far as it will go. You've got to take every ounce of energy it has and just ride it to the shoreline, because otherwise you will regret it if you don't. And he's in a position where he needs to maintain that balance. Don't push it too hard, don't try and be smart, just ride the wave, let it carry you.
Look at this train of beautiful Porsche GT3 Cup cars. If I might say, this is the battle for, I believe, 13th through about 17th on the racetrack. And really, you look down the entire front straightaway, and there's a whole train of cars going down Suzuka right now. But right now, Chris Braun in focus, trying to get around Garrett Taylor, who's right in front of him, and also has Rich Minkler right behind him. And this is through the S's, or also known as the snake section of the racetrack, and one of the most favorite sections of the racetrack, if you ask me. You gotta be ahead of the track. If you fall behind here, you constantly find yourself losing speed and having to reference that mirror. And actually, look at this, Chris Braun getting right up on the back of Garrett Taylor. But here at Suzuka, it's actually a pretty narrow racetrack. Combine that with the technicality, and there's not very many places for them to get past here, is there?
Not at all. Your real opportunities at somewhere like Suzuka are 130R, we have the Casio Triangle, turn 1 and 2 if you're lucky, and we also, if you're brave, the Degnas. Mostly Degna 2. But realistically, it's going to be the draft locations. It's going to be a 130R, it's going to be into Casio, it's going to be into 1. Other locations are far harder unless someone makes a mistake.
And I think that's kind of what you have to do here at Suzuka, and especially in the pro class as well, as we ride on board here with Jake Faulkner in 11th place position. This is that draft you were talking about following Rick Reinsberg. He's going to take advantage of that. He's going to look to the inside here into 130R. Not a good place to go, too wide, and look at this. Face given by both competitors, and look at the smile out of Jake Faulkner's face. He is proud of that move through 130R and moved Jake up inside the top 10. He's another one of these big movers, up 13 positions, but now that he's gotten by Reinsberg, you see the gap that he's got, about 2 seconds up to Ed Eisenring. He's got to make up all of that time to go battle it out for another position.
I think he can, because Eisenring, Facciolo, Craig, Bandiapati are really the grouping here together, and that will slow them all down, especially the three behind Bandiapati, meaning that I do think these two could get up there. Faulkner and Reisenberg, I think, will catch up here. Possibly even Green and Braun, we'll have to see.
And I know I'm a little bit late to the party here. I've seen this note being popped up by Cameron Aubernon. Michael Kuholik, our second place qualifier, has officially retired the car. You saw him have a little bit of contact in one and then got turned around in turn two, just not the start, and then had some damage on the right rear of it and has decided to park that number 62 early. So maybe some future championship implications, because what I always think sets the championship points is maximizing your worst days out on the racetrack. And today, probably one of those days Michael wants to forget out there.
Yeah, I think it is. And thing is, it wasn't even that bad. Not really. It was a mistake. The car got wide. He tried to hold the line. He misjudged. It happens. It just happened to be in one of the most unlucky ways possible at the worst time possible. We all have those moments. I can't blame him. Yes, he'll get penalised by race control for it. He'll catch a penalty. It's how racing works, but at the same time, it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't deliberate. And he's going to pay for it. So, fair enough. Next race is next race, right?
Absolutely. And just got to move on from it, as we saw James Franznick there move up just a position, and looks like, oh, you're right, looks like Chris Braun, this was one of the competitors we were highlighting just a few moments ago, getting it wrong in the Casio triangle and not seeing any damage on that race car. So think maybe he just got a little bit deep on the brakes here as we get this awesome replay queued up by Ryan Bauer. Here we go. Ooh, yeah, a little bit too deep on the brakes. And you know what? I gotta give props to Chris right there, because he avoided all of his competitors, went straight off, and then rejoined safely back onto the racetrack.
Yeah, that's what you do. If you make a mistake and you run deep, you wait and you rejoin when you can and should. That's what that's for, and that's how it should be done. He'll lose some spots, but he'll have a chance to gain it back, and he won't be penalised for that. So that will be beneficial, of course. Looking forward, the gap is down slightly to Gooden. Draw horn up to 1.8. It's not huge, but it's in sight still. We've got Dave Craig's camera there. One of the big curved monitors, although, oh, yeah, that is a huge curved monitor. Okay.
I think that's a triple. You see that center bezel right there? I'm a little jealous. I think that's 32-inch curved triples, and that's pretty much what all of the pro racers run. That is an awesome looking setup from Dave.
Yeah, it really is. I wish I had the space for that sort of thing. That'd be wonderful. I don't, unfortunately. But one thing I don't see guys running very often here, and this is something that actually interests me, is I don't see anyone running head tracking. You see VR, we see triples, we don't see head tracking.
You know, that's actually a really good point. I'm involved in aviation myself.
Same,
and
yes.
I play flight simulators as
Yep.
well, and I know that head trackers are popular in the flight simulator community. However, you're right, you don't see it cross over onto iRacing quite as much, and I think maybe if I was to come up with an excuse for that, mainly the race car, you're focused out of the forward monitor. Even if you're using triples, your right and left monitors are really used more for peripheral rather than looking at what's going on. And here's another third option that we talked about, or that you mentioned earlier, is the virtual reality option.
Exactly. That's a very popular option, which works very much like the head tracking, although it's much more immersive, of course. As you can see here, you can see his view on the screen of what he's looking at, but you'll see the camera isn't always facing forward. And this is the advantage you get from really more head tracking and or VR, is you can look to the apex of the corner. And I do downhill mountain biking, you know, when I'm cornering, I don't drive race cars, but it's a similar principle. When I'm cornering, I'm looking through to the exit of the corner, not necessarily to the apex. I'm looking across the apex towards the exit in a similar way you do in a car. And you're basically letting the car follow your eyes and steering through that kind of eye line. So those do offer that option. I just think it's just less noticed. Some people obviously have less monitor options, that, like Nick Marano here, who's running his direct drive wheel and his wonderful Duncan jersey with the VR headset on. I will say that VR is a terrifying experience in the cars. If you've never used it, it is wild. Like, I crashed a truck at Atlanta one time. I took my hands off the wheel and braced because I thought I was actually going to hit a wall. Like, you feel like you're in that car.
And I don't mean to interrupt you here, but look at this. Nick Melorano here is not only in the Duncan race suit, but he's got the full Duncan car as well, and that's commitment. And you actually see him turning his head there as he goes through Spoon Curve. You mentioned it. And I think that the virtual reality is probably most helpful in situations like off-road, but it's going to help Nick right here. This is going to put him in a spot. He's going to draft up to 130R. Going to go side by side here. Is he going to get the position? No, not going to get it this time, but sets him up for the Casio Triangle. Going to back out of it right now. Think of a better spot to go out and try to get around Rich Minkler, who's right in front of him. And I got to give props to Nick. I love the Duncan. You know, out here on the West Coast, I don't get Duncan. And I'm kind of jealous right now because it's bringing up lots of memories of when I did have Duncan. And here's Enrico, position number 5 up here, 4 spots up in the number 771 car. And actually looking pretty good. This is another onboard shot using another direct drive wheel. This one's a little bit beefier than that CSL DD that we were just seeing.
Yeah, lots of those, and you see the car moving around on the screens there as he's coming through the corners. Lots of hop and skip for the Porsche there. I do say I would love to use one of those direct drive wheels one day. I've only ever used the Logitech ones myself, and some of the other ones, Fanatec's, but those would be cool. I see these guys nearly all running them. They are the best you can probably get in these sort of situations.
I'm a little bit spoiled and have gotten to use my fair share of very high-end sim equipment. And yes, a direct drive wheel is a true game changer out there. So if you were thinking about going to a direct drive wheel, anybody listening, it is 100% worth it. Here is Chris Pies, our final podium runner. Actually looking already a little bit mentally exhausted out there. He's got Jesse Lyon, who's actually starting to close in a little bit behind him, so he's going to have company soon. And Rachel, we mentioned that this is a very, very technical track. That means mentally straining. You have to hit your marks every single lap out there. We're not even 20 minutes into it. This is what I think this is really the meat and potatoes.
Trying to hopefully get eyes to cut towards Nick Melorano again, because he's under serious threat here through 130R. From behind, Logan Grado and Robert Rose just behind him. Really hungry into Casio here. They're the group of 4 ahead of them, right behind him here. Melorano's slipping, and he's not quite as quick. Good run by Grado here. Could see him take the move into 1.
Yeah, definitely great call right here. And I believe this is Rich Minkler that's right behind Melorano. And I think Grado went into pit lane, so that might be our earliest of the pit stop windows. And here you see Minkler trying to poke out in front of Melorano, just kind of give any sort of pressure that he can to put Nick off of his step. And that's the easiest way to make a pass at Suzuka. Like we mentioned earlier, not very many places to get truly side by side, so sometimes the pass has to come from the rear view mirror and just applying that pressure, making that mistake from that competitor in front of you.
Yeah, I think it does, and that's one of the best ways to make a move at Suzuka, is to let your opponent make a mistake. Ride the back of them, keep the pressure on, and wait for them to screw up, because then you get an easy pass. Otherwise, you are very limited in where and what you can do.
Hunting down those delicious Dunkin' Donuts is what Rich Minkler has on his mind right now, although it looks like they're starting to slip away just a little bit from his grasp. Got to get back up there to get them hot and fresh ready. Although I don't think that's Dunkin's tagline. I think that was a different donut company there. And here we're going to jump up to Ed Eisenring, because Ed has a little bit of company himself right now. He is currently chasing David Craig as well as Jake Faulkner, who's right behind Ed. But Ed trying to make a move on Dave going into 130R here, Rachel.
Yeah, he is, and we'll see if we can do anything with it. Ed looking strong, but won't be close enough to do anything even into Casio. Just a little too far back. I think if they're not almost alongside in 130, you aren't going to recoup that as you head through Casio, so it's best to just lay off and try and get a run towards 1, set up for something through the S's, but it was a close moment for a second.
Well, and this really is Nick Faccioli up here in 7th, David Craig there, Ed Eisenring, Jake Faulkner, And then the next group back, there's a big gap there, about 3 seconds, all the way back to Rick Reinsberg, back there in 11th spot. So Jake Faulkner, the tail end of this caboose, as we jump back to Dale Green in that 12th place position. And Dale is the second car line chasing Rick Reinsberg. We got Garrett Taylor right behind him, and then also Chris Braun. And actually, let's highlight Chris right here in the number 258, because I think Chris is actually the fastest car of this 4-car train. He might be trying to make his way through here. Remember, Chris had that little bit of an early lockup mistake going into the Casio Triangle. Looks like he's gathered things up nicely, though.
Yeah, no, he definitely has, and we'll see, of course, whether we can bring that back into a competitive angle here, but close here through the second deck, down towards the hairpin. Fourth gear holding the limiter there as he drops down to the corner, down to second gear. Through the hairpin they'll come. Back out the far side, keep it straight, keep it smooth, accelerate out again. Up through 200R, which is flat out for these guys, really. They'll keep the gas down, track it all the way through here towards the first part of Spoon. Big fast through up at the top of the gearbox now, braking into the first part of Spoon, all the way down again. Keep it fast though, keep it wide, double apex left here through Spoon 1 and 2, second apex there. Tuck it tight, run it out wide, big acceleration, and you'll see him get a good gain here. And this could be an interesting section with these 4.
Yeah, you saw Reinsberg go wide there in Spoon. That's going to open the door now for Garrett Taylor. Chris Braun just kind of watching this all unfold, and tell you what, Reinsberg lost 3 positions because here comes Chris Braun now by the number 20 car, and just going a little bit too wide in the second part of the Spoon curve, caught out Rick Reinsberg, loses 3 positions on the track because of it. And just like that, the technicality of Suzuka, you get pushed out just that little bit, it can bite you big time. And Rick didn't even go off the track right there. He just had a little bit of a small mistake. I would even call that a half a step of a mistake, and all of a sudden 3 cars going by you. And looking at something that I've been trying to keep an eye on, and actually just as I look over here, our producer is looking at the exact same thing. Drawhorn slowly closing in on our leader, Wyatt Gooden, a little bit each lap. That last lap, a 203.2. Compare that to our leader of Gooden, a 204.5. So actually a pretty significant loss last lap from Wyatt Gooden.
Yeah, that's definitely a dramatic drop there. So we could see Drawhorn really brought into contention here, and if we get to traffic, I think that will change a lot. Because Wyatt Gooden is leading, but at the same time, he has got guys just ahead of him, the likes of Peterson, who's running up towards Casio right now, Cowley, who's just starting the lap. Those will be the first he gets to. He isn't far behind them, so this could change quite soon. There is a lot to come. The race is far from over, and I think that will make a big difference in how this plays. Not a ton of traffic, but it will be there, and it will impact things.
It will, definitely, and have to see how they navigate through it. And check this out. I mentioned this about a handful of laps ago. Jesse Lyon has now closed in on Chris Pies. This is the battle for your final podium spot out there on the racetrack, and Pies has been running out there in the 3rd place position, but Jesse Lyon has been closing in on him just a few tenths of a second per lap, and here we officially have the battle on now for 3rd place. And if you remember, Jesse Lyon was involved in that very early accident in turns 1 and 2 with Michael Kuholich, and now he's back up on here trying to spray some champagne, and I think he does have a little bit more pace on Pies right now, but passing somebody and catching are 2 totally different things here at Suzuka.
Yeah, they are, and it's very much a case of taking advantage of a mistake, because really just setting up and working a pass is such a hard and difficult situation. It is really about trying to force errors.
Well, and errors are happening out there, and tell you what, I mean, both of these battles, this one is a little bit closer, but Drawhorn is continuing to close in on our leader, Gooden. He's now under 1 second behind Wyatt out there as Lion continues to mount the charge on Pies going through Spoon Curve. One of the trickiest areas of the racetrack. You see Lion really going way wide there on Spoon, but he gets a fantastic exit. Impressive that he was able to stay in the throttle and now using the draft. Going to go side by side into 130R. This really leaves Pies out to dry as you see Chris backs out of it, tucks back in line. Promote Jesse Lion up into the third place position.
Yeah, it really does, and that will have a big effect for him. Lion really working his way back up through this one, and he has got some still to work, but there'll still be time to play with that. Putting Pies back and forth, though, will be interesting. We'll see if Chris can answer back.
Here we're riding on board Ed Eisenring once again, but Jake Faulkner has actually made his way through up a little bit more, up into the 8th place position right in front of him. And they actually are chasing down Nick Faccioli up there in the 7th place position, only about a second and a half now remaining out of that gap. I mentioned it was about 3 seconds when they were out there and Faulkner was in front, and slowly but surely closing that in. And here is that battle once more. Chris Braun made his way up into the 13th position, although now that he's up here, he's kind of stuck behind Garrett Taylor as well as Dale Green. They're all running pretty similar lap times, 2:04.7. I think that Chris is getting held up maybe a little bit by these cars in front of him, but we've mentioned it so many times that Suzuka is just a really, really tough racetrack to get around other cars.
Yeah, it really is, and it does present that sort of issue for people that you will find it really is a racetrack where you won't use it to compete against other cars. You are competing against the track here. The car's just in your way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and it's kind of that mental aspect. Is here we got Melarano going up around Rheinsberg, and don't mean to cut you off, but I was agreeing with you in the sense that this is a very mentally straining race with Suzuka.
No, absolutely. It's very, very straining. It's a track you have to concentrate on at all times.
We got Eisenring going through that Spoon Curve one more time, way wide through the second apex there, trying to capitalize on the run off of the exit, tucked up in the slipstream behind Jake Faulkner right now. Doesn't have anywhere to go here in 130R. He can show the nose all he wants, but he's not going to be able to get the car up alongside, or I should say politely get it up there. But, and you see, not close enough in the Casio triangle either, but Dave Craig definitely, oh, we got problems. Chris Braun around behind him. That was the same area that we saw Chris have a problem earlier in the race as well. And unfortunately, I think a little bit too deep on the brakes, and here we're riding on board one more time with Dave Craig up in 10th.
Yeah, Craig could definitely be a factor in this one. We'll have to see if he can try and get up there and do something with it, but Eisenring has still got to focus behind him, though. Keep an eye on that one. He wants to go after Faulkner, of course, but well, the mirror works both ways.
Yes, it really does. And got to remember, we're only about halfway through this race right now, and looking at that lap count, I believe that right about now is when the pit window will officially open. Now, we were looking at a little bit of data pre-race here, and usually about lap 15 to lap 22, that's about the 30 to 45 minute window if you're looking at that timer. So if you're trying to get around somebody, or maybe if you're stuck in the back of one of these pack trains, you can try the undercut method of coming into the pits, getting your stop done early, coming back out into clean air and laying down those qualifying times and see if that can help you out. Or you can pull the other strategy, which is the overcut, save fuel behind somebody, stretch it that extra lap or two longer than they can, and then try to get the pass done in the pits that way. And variety of strategies. Rachel, what do you prefer? Do you just like to run the car dry, or are you an early pitter?
I think it depends for me on when the strategy best fits the car. I may prefer my car a certain weight to give it a certain balance. So I may choose in some races to pit early, so I keep my car as heavy as possible for as long as I can, to give it a better balance over the car, depending on where the fuel tank sits. I may go late because the car runs better light, but it will depend on how the car feels for me more than anything else. The biggest part is if I'm taking tyres in a race, that will dictate when I get my fuel, because the tyres are important. And also on top of that, where will I come out to pit road? Will I come out, am I in really heavy traffic right now? Am I struggling to pass? Then I pit now if I'm in the window, because it gets me out of that situation. Or I can't pass someone there faster, but I might get clean air if I pit now and come out elsewhere. Then I may be able to run quicker on my own and get through. So the call is very much race and strategy dependent.
Well, I think that's a sign of a true strategist. To be flexible, you have to be able to read the landscape, read the race, and then be able to apply the best strategy out there. And tell you what, Ed Eisenring, his strategy with Jake Faulkner is just apply as much pressure as possible. But hey, it's working, because these two cars are doing 203s, and they're catching Nick Faccioli right in front of him, who just put down a 204.7. So these two cars that we're watching right here, the 19 and the 929, actually some of the fastest cars on the racetrack inside the top 10 right now. Even though they look like they're fighting, I think that they actually might be pushing each other along, trying to chase down that 717 there right in front of them. And I tell you what, Ed keeps showing the nose, and actually a little bit wide there in Spoon. And look at this, Faulkner a little bit wide himself, and they might be starting to battle it out a little bit more now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are here, and from behind Faulkner, Eisenring is in a stronger position, won't be close enough yet. Got the onboard there for Faulkner, he's got a fan going, keep himself cool. Racing can be hard work, especially with the heavy feedback from those direct drive wheels. Trying to put a stress on the drivers. Here he comes from the inside. Big move by Eisenring, gets the inside, but will he get a crossover with Faulkner? Will Faulkner come back at him? He will. He's got a good run out the corner. He's going to be right on the rear end of that car, coming out of the final corner onto the front straight here. There's damage on the right rear there of Eisenring. Faulkner's going to be alongside him as they cross the line here under the bridge. He'll be up the inside. You can see the concentration on his face there, the onboard camera. It is great to see these guys in these situations driving. And look at the glance from his eyes. You saw his eyes flick left there to the outside. He wanted to see where Eisenring was. Oh, but the back and forth is phenomenal.
It is great racing between Eisenring and Faulkner, and you see Jake's biggest fan right there standing next to him, cheering him on. And Faulkner has just got the over-under, and Dave Craig is kind of sitting in the buffet seat right here. He's watching everything go on right in front of him, waiting to kind of pick up the pieces if there's any scraps left out there on the racetrack. And they have slowly but surely caught Nick Faccioli. You see that green car right there in front of him, only about a second and a half up the racetrack. So this will be a fight, I think, to the end. And that's a great point you also mentioned on Ed's car. It's a little bit banged up. There's some damage on the right rear. I think I might see a little bit of damage on the right front of the car as well. And I don't think that's doing Ed any favors in terms of top-end speed out there. All these cars are on a fixed setup, so everybody's got the same car underneath them. And when you see that damage, it's a bit like seeing blood in the water for the competitors. You kind of know that they're going to be a sitting duck on the straightaway. Maybe not a huge disadvantage, but there is a disadvantage when you see that.
Yeah, there certainly is, and that will be something you have to pay attention to keep yourself going there. We've got Braun on a black flag for the incident earlier on. Chris Braun catching that one for the 32-minute incident we saw there. And as it stands right now, we've got 24 minutes remaining. We're supposed to see everyone start to really dive down pit road from now on until we get to that 20-minute mark. That's kind of our outer kind of limit. We saw the winner pit last night about 40 minutes in, so we're in that 5-minute bracket here to where that will occur for us, and this is where we'll see some slight variance. Drawhorn and Gooden, they're 1.2 seconds apart. That has been so constant all race. Drawhorn's been in a great run. Honestly, I'm proud of Trey. I've seen him grow so much over the last couple of seasons with this series. To see him running this well, this fast, it is super impressive. He's back and Gooden here for the head of this thing. Lion is 6.6 seconds back. He's 4.5 back from these two. Pie's 2.5 ahead back from him. There's a real chance here. This could change entirely on pit road. 1.2 seconds could vanish with a mistake. There's traffic right ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I think that strategy could play a huge part in this race. And you mentioned the race winner just the previous night pitted around lap 19, 20, 21 kind of was the lead group right there. And we're working lap 18 with these leaders. And actually, Drawhorn as close as he has ever been to our leader, Wyatt Gooden. So Drawhorn definitely picking up the pace when he needs to. And right on cue, Rachel, like you mentioned, you see lapped traffic right in front of him. And it's actually not just one car, but there's two cars kind of evenly spaced out. So it all depends when they catch that lap traffic. Although I will say here in the PCA sim racing, these competitors usually, they're very aware of everything going on the racetrack. And if they see the leader come up, they try to give way as best as they can.
Yeah, they will, and they do. But it depends if we catch them in a really bad spot. They've got to know where they can go, so that ends up causing a problem or a benefit, depending on who and where you are.
Well, and just like that, you saw Drawhorn have to deal with Braun coming out of the pits. He was black flagged there for that incident responsibility, as well as taking that pit stop cycle. Just was right at the apex of turn one, and Drawhorn had to go out wide. It didn't cost him too much time, but just like that, your race can get taken away if there was any sort of contact. And it looks like Eisenring finally got by Faccioli out there. Oh, I'm sorry. Looks like Faccioli has taken his pit stop. I was watching timing and scoring and thought I saw some action out on the racetrack, but instead it's action on pit road.
Yeah, he is, and we'll see if that will benefit him where he'll come out. Trey Drawhorn here right behind Gooden. The gap is super close now. That lap traffic did have an impact. It's 0.6 seconds now between the two of them. This could really change. He's in the draft window. That is super important here, Joey. He's right in that window where he can suck up and follow him. So we could see this change.
Well, last lap at this spot, he was 8 tenths behind, and now look at that gap, less than 3.5 tenths behind Wyatt Gooden. The race is officially on for the lead here at Suzuka for this PCA Sim Racing Series Pro Class. And I gotta say, I remember Wyatt because back when I was doing Volkswagen TDI Cup, once I moved on and went up into the Grand Am Series, Wyatt came into that SCCA Pro Racing Volkswagen TDI Cup, and he came with a ton of iRacing background and wins, and he was really this hot kid on the block back then, and he has continued that prowess out on the racetrack. Oh, and just like that, a lockup from our leader, Wyatt Gooden. The commentator's curse bites our leader.
And through goes Trey Drawhorn. This is what we said. It takes a mistake sometimes to pass a Suzuka. And I think the pressure from the man who saved his rear tires bit Wyatt Gooden in the rear, because the pressure might have made him overcook it there. And he just didn't turn. It happens. You make mistakes and you reap the whirlwind. So Trey Drawhorn, our leader here on lap 20. Did we just see the race change?
Yeah, definitely. That was a huge change, just a lockup from our leader. And, you know, you called it. You know, that was as close as Drawhorn has been the entire race. He has been slowly but surely closing in. And I think that it was just enough that Wyatt was maybe looking in his mirrors a little bit more than looking at his braking marker. And just like that, a little bit of lockup going into that Casio triangle cost him the lead. And I will say the race is not over. Wyatt Gooden is back on the racetrack, and he is only one corner behind our leader here. And so the strategy can definitely draw them back in or stretch them out even further. As looks like we're going to jump back to a little bit more action on the racetrack. Duncan in the drive-through here. Nick Melorano chasing down Dale Green through the S's. And hey, Rachel, check this out. Another car with some right rear damage, it looks like, right in front of him.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And right rear damage is pretty common here. I think a lot of it's from people out braking themselves.
And yes, I think so too, especially going into the Casio triangle, maybe showing a nose, or into the Degner curves here, maybe showing just that little bit of nose. And here comes Nick Melorano trying to get side by side. Look at this. Already gets it done going into the hairpin. Promote him up one, but no, locks it up too deep. Dale Green back over under, and now we race it down to Spoon Curve. I will say, Nick does have a little bit of a draft advantage here, but Dale Green with that better exit. What a fantastic race here for what would be the top 10.
Yeah, it really is. These guys are putting on a great show tonight, and we're seeing a fantastic run. Green back there really putting on a good work there with 117 behind him now. This is really topping up to be a great run.
Well, and you saw on board there with Nick, he's taken some deep breaths right there. He realized, hey, I just need to calm it down a little bit, get back to doing some consistent laps. I can get back by Dale Green in that number 250. And here's Jesse Lyon. We're highlighting Jesse because he was our third place runner. So he's the first of our podium runners right now to hit pit lane in his Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. And we mentioned 65% fuel capacity, so they will have to come down pit road. And now that we're under 20 minutes, it's kind of getting light on those fuel tanks in the front of these cars.
It's a, whoa! Big lockup in front of those guys there. That was Garrett Taylor and Dale Green just
that
coming
was
into turn two. Yeah, Lyon, was it? He must have dropped back here, but yeah, huge lockup there on those tyres as they came through too. Nearly got into the back there of Taylor.
Well, and you were mentioning the strategy calls and coming out into clean air, right? You got to read the racetrack, and sometimes that's difficult to do here in sim racing. You are the crew chief, you are the driver, you are the strategist all in one. It's difficult to read those gaps, but look at this. Jesse Lyon, he was in third place, and he's come back out in this battle for the top 10, and this will definitely cost Jesse Lyon time. I wonder if this will fall in favor of Chris Pies in the number 14 car, who was only about a second, maybe a second and a half behind Jesse Lyon on the racetrack. And here is our leader. Oh, and more problems once again. Gooden, did you see that? Going wide again in the Casio triangle.
Yeah, he certainly did, and they're at it again here. It could be a good run though, running a little bit wider in the middle, and he goes down the inside. Gooden's in pit road here. I'm going to keep an eye on Lyon as he just got a great run up the inside. Drawhorn's in too. Lyon makes that move there. Out of Spoon.
You're right. Jesse Lyon got that move done on Garrett Taylor there. So now Jesse Lyon is clear and freed up into some nice clean air in front of him. But watch this. This is the battle coming back out on the lead of the racetrack. Drawhorn stays in front of Gooden. So similar fuel fill times between the two. And Rachel, I would think that now really the race is on between these two, fair and square.
Oh, certainly is, and I don't think there'll be any doubt as to what will happen from this. This is going to be really tight here. They're both on the same fuel now, but they didn't take tyres that I can tell. I'm going to go back and check for you for sure, but these guys are in a position where I think this could come down to who had more saved.
Very interesting, and especially if we saw Wyatt Gooden making those lockups in the Casio triangle. Wonder if that's going to come back to bite him with the tire wear later on. And this is our leader, Chris Pies, right now, currently driving the number 14 car, and Chris has yet to hit pit road. He was fourth place before all of these pit stop cycles started, but I mentioned we were documenting Jesse Lyon coming back out into traffic. Now, Jesse was the competitor that Chris was fighting on the racetrack, and now with Chris going longer on this pit stop, Jesse getting held up in traffic, I'm going to be very curious once the cycles play out how it all levels out on the racetrack between these front runners, because we got to remember that's really the final spot on the podium. This is the final place to spray the champagne, and here we go. Chris Pies into pit road. It will play out soon.
It will. I'm just getting confirmation. I'm pretty positive these cars can take fuel and tyres at the same time. They can. So neither Drawhorn or Gooden took tyres, even though their stops were long enough for at least two.
Interesting.
I'm good, and I've eaten my rear tyres. I'm taking a pair of rears here. Neither took anything, so the advantage, I've got to say, is looking like Drawhorn, who looked after his tyres better all race.
That's very interesting and a very good catch from you out here. And look at this, to kind of play into that storyline now that we've only got less than 15 minutes out there. Drawhorn is actually starting to stretch it out a little bit. This is the biggest gap for the lead we've seen over Wyatt Gooden, almost 1.5 seconds currently, and there's actually a lapped car between the two. That's Ryan Cowley, who we're getting on board with the virtual reality, and he's not holding up Wyatt Gooden at all. However, that is more dirty air that Wyatt has to navigate through, and I'm looking, the time is slipping away slowly but surely each corner that he's stuck behind this lapped car.
Yeah, it really is, and I think that will be a big factor. Lap traffic will always play into these things. You have to be very careful. You've got to work out when to get that advantage.
Well, and remember how we were documenting that Pies Lion battle? Well, let's take a look at timing and scoring, because Christopher Pies maybe didn't have the speed out on the racetrack to keep it out front, but the strategy call really paying off right now, because he finds himself 4 seconds in front of Jesse Lyon. And we got to remember, Jesse was actually in front of Chris before the pit stops, and wow, what an overcut from Chris Pies.
Yeah, no, we'll see how that does go, but Pies has been running pretty strong. I look forward to see what he can do with this.
And here we go, battles back on for the lead. Wyatt Gooden doing everything he can to try to keep in touch with Drawhorn in the 395 out front. And I think Drawhorn's got a little bit of something to prove out there on the racetrack, because remember, last time out at VIR, Wyatt qualified on pole, ran away with it with the race win. Well, shows up here at Suzuka, kind of logs into the session late like he's one of these fast kids, which I know he is. Wyatt's a good kid. He's a really good driver out there. Puts it on pole one more time and leads the first half of this race. Looks like he's really going to run away with it, but Drawhorn, I think the biggest story of this race, qualified back there in 5th in the top 5, showing speed, but ever since that green flag drop, he's been on a mission, and he is currently setting the pace out front.
Yeah, and the gap is just booming here. I think that shows the difference in late race performance between these two. Gooden was so dominant, but it seems that Drawhorn really had the bite from about 30 minutes onwards here. He started to eat away that time, but the pit cycle just changed that completely. He has more tyres on that car, and I don't think Wyatt Gooden can really hold to him. His biggest problem right now is keeping Pies away.
I agree, and Chris Pies back there in 4th place, and gonna see what the lap times roll through once they hit timing and scoring, because Chris Pies, that late pit stop, still is technically on an out lap from when he first crossed start-finish line, so the lap times aren't necessarily lining up right now, but 1.2 seconds the gap between our leader, Drawhorn, and 2nd place Gooden. And let me take a look a little bit further up on the racetrack here. There are a couple more lapped cars that these drivers are going to have to deal with, so I don't think it's over by any means. And was there maybe a little bit of a slowdown from Drawhorn? Because it looks like Gooden closed it up almost 3/10 there in just a couple corners.
He got a bit, but it's not a ton. He caught some, but that's a pretty strong gap. I think it may have just been traffic that cost Drawhorn a little bit. He's coming out right behind someone who gets out of the way, which is good, but it's a little bit late for Gooden. Gooden's definitely pushing hard, I think, but he might be using what he's last time he's got.
Well, and I think Drawhorn was definitely more tentative going into turn 1 there. He had that car coming out of pit lane, and being the leader, you're never sure if they're checking their mirrors or not, and just gave a little bit of extra room there. And you see Wyatt Gooden a little bit more aggressive with the lap traffic. He doesn't really have anything to lose, and now that gap back down to only 1 second on the racetrack. Under 10 minutes to go. This is your final podium battle for the win. Chris Pies still 4 seconds ahead of Jesse Lyon out there. And now that we're down to this final moments of the race, Rachel, I actually want to go back and look and see some of who our biggest movers are out there. And looks like it's still Bandyopadje in 6th place, up 12 positions right now.
Yeah, he's one of the big movers in this so far, so it's been a huge one for him. But we've also got some of these guys who filtered through, like Dale Green, 20th to 11th as well. 22nd to 12th for Logan Grado, he's up 10. We have 23rd to 15th is for James Faulkner. We had some bigger movers earlier, but Bandyopadje, yeah, 18th to 6th. Up 12 so far, our biggest mover.
And you see here, oh, problems for Jake Faulkner. This is a car that we were highlighting earlier on. Jake now having some problems coming out of the snake. Really tough there. Goes 4 wheels off, gonna have to sacrifice a little bit of track position. And you see here, once you get those dirty tires, it's actually pretty tough to get back up to speed. And looking like Jake will fall back to the 17th place position. And a little bit of rubbing some dirt in the wound, because I think Jake was having a really good race. He's going to look back. He's still up 6 places right now, but he could have been up a little bit more. And hey, check this out. Was maybe Wyatt Gooden saving a little bit for the final 5 minutes?
He could be, but it could also fall away in no time at all. You can't tell. He might have been, but I don't think he'd have let him draw one through and cooked that corner if he was saving.
I totally agree, and we're going to have to see here. 7.5 minutes remain. Looking at the scoreboard, only 0.8 of a second separating Wyatt Gooden and Trey Drawhorn up here, and looks like this white car is slowly but surely closing it in. And I will say, I haven't seen any mistakes out of Drawhorn at all this race. He's left a little bit of room for some competitors that he's come up on. However, the number 18 of Gooden, we have seen not one, but multiple mistakes out of the Casio triangle, getting locked up, getting in too deep. So I think this will be a storyline to play out. If Wyatt Gooden is able to catch Drawhorn, where's he going to get by him?
There are 2 ways to look at this. We can see it as possibly a big gain by Gooden. Has he just driven faster? Or has Drawhorn backed off slightly? Because both those scenarios are equally possible. Looking at the last couple of laps, Wyatt Gooden, 203.6, 203.1, 203.2. We go look instead at Trey Drawhorn, and we had a 203.6, 203.4, 0.4, and a 31.6. So realistically, the difference there is that it was just a little quicker 1 lap by 0.2, which is not a ton. That's really not a big gap. In fact, Drawhorn was faster more recently than he was.
Yeah, but this last time, our leader put down a 203.4. Compare that to second place, 203.00. So Wyatt Gooden, and I'm actually looking down the sheet. There's one car faster than Wyatt Gooden on the racetrack. That's Jesse Lyon. He's only faster by 2/100ths of a second. So this car that we're riding on board with right now of Wyatt Gooden, one of the fastest on the racetrack. However, Drawhorn in front of him has made 0 mistakes today at Suzuka. So gonna be a tough mountain to climb to get around the number 395 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. Right in front of him, you're gonna have to go up and pressure him into a mistake, and I don't think you're gonna get a mistake out of Drawhorn.
No, I think it's more that he's in the draft, so he's going to get a speed boost anyway because he's close enough to be drafting. That's why he'll get a faster lap time. It's not that he's actually faster, it's just that they work better together. I just don't think he has time to pass Drawhorn.
I totally agree with you, and you see that really wide line there through Spoon Curve one more time, and look at the exit from Drawhorn, doing an excellent job out there. And oh no, I think we got more problems with Jake Faulkner. It looks like he's pitting his number 19 machine, so the day not going his way. And stay on board here with our battle for the lead, and we're going to be coming up to the line here with about 4 minutes remaining, just under 4 minutes remaining. So correct me if I'm wrong here. We're looking probably at another 2 to 3 laps out here on the racetrack at Suzuka, given they're doing about 2 minutes 3 seconds.
I think that's what we're expecting, yeah. 2 or 3 laps is going to be our ballpark. It might be any time from now on. So with what we have remaining for ourselves tonight, let's look at the clock we've got here. 3 minutes 40. We've just crossed the line. They'll come back around. It'll be over before we'll look at 2 laps.
2 laps remaining here at Suzuka. So the time is running out. Drawhorn counting down the corners. Gooden trying to apply the pressure as much as he can. And got to remember, Wyatt led the majority of this race, and then a mistake, a self-mistake out of Wyatt Gooden cost himself the lead, and Drawhorn said, you know what, I'll take it. Thank you very much. And ever since he has been out front, he has said, peace out. I am not making any mistakes. I am taking charge up here. And really, I think it's Drawhorn's race to lose. And the other battle that I think might actually close up is Jesse Lyon and Chris Pies for our final podium spot, because right now Chris Pies is getting held up by traffic. You actually see him right back there in the final frame of the shot, and might get Jesse Lyon on that final podium spot as they go by Jake Faulkner on the racetrack here. Rachel, might have you keep an eye on this one.
I think I'm going to have to, as we've got a lot to look out for the end of this race, but this is great racing. There's so much action.
And that's why I think this pro class really always delivers. You know, there's great racers in here. We saw, 25 plus cars take the grid. Yeah, it was a little bit of a tap of the bumper early on in turns 1 and 2 that got kind of a log jam there, but ever since been extremely clean racing from everybody out there on the racetrack, leaving room for all of the competitors. And here we go. Gonna have 1 lap remaining. Drawhorn over Gooden, less than half a second between our top 2, and then there you see him right behind. Guys, over Lyon half a second. This is one heck of a 2x2 battle to finish it out.
Absolutely is. You keep a look at the front 2. I'll keep an eye on these 2. Don't want to lose eyes on anything here, but woo, it's definitely getting good right now. We've got Craig and there's Eisenring a little bit further back. We've got move between Taylor and Green. I don't know what to watch. Taylor makes a move through there, I think, on Dale Green. It was. That's been shuffling around a little bit. Green actually dropped back here, but Lyon's looking super, super close. Gooden's looking super close. Who knows where it's going to go?
Well, here we're going to ride on board with Wyatt Gooden. He's applying the pressure to our leader, Trey Drawhorn, right in front. Through the Degner bends, this is going to come up to a potential aggressive passing opportunity into the hairpin. You see him both squirm.
Lyon.
Oh, there's the battle for third behind.
Yeah, Lyon took a move into Degner 2, which is brave. You don't pass in Degner 2. What? Oh, he's looking at the outside. Oh, big lockup by Lyon. He goes wide. He loses time. That is huge. He's going to cook the opportunity there. He was desperate to find a way through. Gooden towards the front, not close enough to make a move on Drawhorn, but he could set up for a run through Spoon here. We'll have to see. I think Lyon's lost his shot, actually, for third place.
And actually, let's see here. Gooden doesn't get the exit that he needs. Drawhorn, fantastic run out of the Spoon curve. Is this going to secure the victory for the 395? All Wyatt Gooden can do right now is tuck up in that toe, in that slipstream, hit his marks on the braking of the Casio triangle one more time, but it's all our leader, Drawhorn. Don't overstep the limit on these curbs. Put down the throttle coming out, and now he sees Barney, the checkered flag right in front of him. Drawhorn gonna collect the win here at Suzuka.
Lyon was right at the back of Chris Pies, but he drifts the final corner. Oh, to Japan almost there, just loses that traction. He was on him coming through the Casio triangle. My gosh.
Oh, what a finish for that final podium spot. Chris Pies hangs on, and look back, these are more cars finishing. Dave Craig right now in position number 9. He's chasing Garrett Taylor right in front of him. Gonna go down through 130R. One more opportunity. Does Dave go late on the brakes here? He's looking, but Garrett goes defensive. Oh, lock up from both of them. This is going to open the door.
Behind, here comes Facciolo and Green, and they're all over this thing. Who's going to take what? Who knows?
Faccioli.
717. Facciolo will take a spot here. 2 spots, in fact.
Yeah, Nick Facciolo comes out the big winner in the Casio Triangle, coming out position number 9. And wow, Rachel,
that was an amazing race.
You know, it was a little mellow right there in the middle, but holy smokes, they turned up the heat there at the end. And what we're going to do here is going to take a quick break out on the racetrack. Be right back with post-race interviews and your full official results.
A little earlier if that's going to be the case. He's actually got a nose ahead as they come down into the braking zone. He's going to do it the hard way.
If you're a Porsche owner looking for reliable, convenient service without leaving the comfort of your home or office, look no further and take advantage of the Exchange at Home complimentary pickup and drop-off service exclusively at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. At the Porsche Exchange, it's all about creating a legendary ownership experience that embodies our guest lifestyle. Our Porsche service team utilizes cutting-edge technology that delivers a transparent service visit and keeps us in constant contact with our guests. And I can't think of anyone more qualified to work on your Porsche, new or classic, than our Porsche certified technicians. Whether you're a longtime guest or new to our dealership, I welcome you to experience legendary at the Porsche Exchange.
What an exciting finish you just saw here to the PCA Sim Racing Pro Class at Suzuka, and it was Trey Drawhorn that comes out on top by the narrowest of margins over Wyatt Gooden there in second place, and the strategy call by Chris Pies puts him on the podium, albeit having to fend him off, elbows out Jesse Lyon there in fourth place. Heck of a run from Jesse to chase down Chris Pies twice in that race. Enrico Gregorato there in the fifth place, coming home with that top 5. Banjo Page there in sixth. Ed Eisenring seventh. Garrett Taylor 8th. Nick Faccioli 9th. And Dave Craig coming home in 10th.
11th place tonight will be Dale Green there with Logan Grado in 12th. Mick Maranio in 13th. Justin Sank in 14th. Rick Reisenberg 15th, Rich Minkler in 16th. Robert Rose 17th with 18th, Mark Nister. Andy Jenks is 19th with Chris Braun in 20th.
You're in 21st, and your last car on the lead lap is Leif Peterson. Then we highlighted the problems for Jake Faulkner, 1 lap down. Ryan Cowley as well, 1 lap down. Paddy Patterson with the problem early on, and then you see Jacob Schumann. The rest DNFs here, multiple laps down, and looks like actually gonna have some of the drivers now joining us for some post-race interviews, and gonna start with Trey Drawhorn. Congratulations on the win here at Suzuka, Trey.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, talk to us about the race, primarily here, the first corner, because how did you escape through that? And that really sets you up to potentially go down and chase down this win.
I played the patience game, to be honest. I thought I had a good run on Jesse and going down to turn 1, and I was like, I didn't get enough, let's say, enough speed to pass him or to be on the inside of his door. So I backed out, and then I saw them touch in front, and I was like, oh no. So I slowed down, and I knew Jesse's car was gonna slide back out, so I was just patient, and then went through on apex.
Well, perfectly read on your part, and you escaped with a clean car, which was crucial for you to then go chase down Wyatt Gooden, and he actually made the pass quite easy for you. But I tell you what, he certainly mounted a charge to come back at the end of the race on you, didn't he?
Oh yeah, I was. He made me nervous. I won't even lie. Props to him. I mean, we were going at it. We were both trying to save tires, and I was nervous about like just the tires and how much I'd have left, and if I was gonna make it so I have 0 on the rears or the fronts. It was a tire game, but yeah, he really led a good charge. Try and get me on the last few laps.
That was actually my next and last question to you is, how much were you having to manage tires? Were you pushing 100% trying to catch them and pass them, or were you trying to manage anything out there?
I was trying to manage. I was trying to keep the distance the same between me and him, and maybe find a little bit of time here and there, but not really chase him, because I know I was gonna. If I were to chase him, I'd run off the tires.
Well, Trey, I think this is your second win here in the PCA Sim Racing Pro class. And before I let you go, anybody you want to say hi to or thank that helps you get it done out there on the racetrack?
Hi to all my family, family, friends, and all people rooting for me out there. PCA members, you guys, thank you. Axiom, everybody, and specifically Michael Kolich. He helped me with line and analyzing and be able to compare my times between him and me. So thank you.
Well, that was Trey Drawhorn taking home the win here at Suzuka, and looks like Rachel has caught up with our second place finisher.
I certainly have. Wyatt, incredible race today. It seemed like your tires started to go off towards the pit stop. We saw you miss the Casio triangle, but then you had a huge comeback towards the end there. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I was struggling really bad with my tires. I don't know, I guess they kind of came in a little bit later, and I settled down, but I didn't have much control over the brake today. I was just locking up left and right.
Do you think that's more of a product of the track here, or is it the car, or do you think it was just a combination of the effects of the situation?
It's just, I guess, the setup. Setup was a little tricky to drive. It was pretty understeery, and I was playing with brake bias, and I probably went a little bit too conservative, and I just had issues locking up the fronts and just missing my spots. It's just driving a little sloppy.
Hey, it happens, but a fantastic race regardless. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank simshop.com, SimMagic. Great race, and Trey did amazingly well. He drove great, and he made the least mistake, so he deserved that win. Congrats to him.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Wyatt Gooden coming home today in second. Joey?
That's going to bring up one final podium finisher here. What I think is the strategy call of the race. Chris Pies, what a way to finish on the podium. Third place for you.
Yeah, that was a fun race. I really like this car, and the whole tire wear throughout this entire race made for interesting strategy calls. I think multiple people did multiple things. Some took tires, some didn't. I tried to baby my car as much as I could because I had a plan of not taking any tires and save fuel, save tires, and see where it put me in the last 15 minutes to actually go race.
Well, now, Chris, you had to deal with Jesse Lyon not once, but twice this race. And were you saving? Is that why Jesse was able to get around you, or were you just running your own race out there, not even worried about that 115?
Yeah, I saw him coming up on me pretty quick, and I knew he probably had a bit of a fire under him after that turn one incident. So yeah, I had a strategy, and when I actually saw him coming, I wasn't going to make it easy on him, but I also wasn't going to hold him up either. I kind of hoped he would go chase the front guys and push them so they'd run their tires off and run their fuel out, and maybe I could get a little bit of a draft. But yeah, it was a strategic call just to kind of let him lie relatively easily.
Well, your strategy worked out beautifully out there on the racetrack, and you end up on the podium here. And now looking forward to Spa. You mentioned you enjoyed kind of having to save and play that strategy game. It is a driver vote on which car you guys are going to be racing out there. Do you maybe have a favorite or one that you're leaning towards?
I'm personally, I love the Cup car. It's my favorite of the options that we had, and so if it goes that route, it'll be another race. I think very similar to this, where taking care of the equipment, taking care of the car will be absolutely crucial to be able to do well. So that's my vote, is the 992 Cup.
Well, and before I let you go, I got to say, you got one of the coolest looking Saybelt race seats out there. So props to you for that. But anybody you want to say hi to before we let you go?
Yeah, let's say hi to my real life team. So hey John with Old Fashioned Motorsports. Hey Phil over there with Ludicrous Racing. I'll see you guys at Road America. I can't wait in a couple weeks.
Well, that was Chris Pies. The strategy call of the night lands him spraying champagne on the podium, and looks like that's pretty much going to do it. Want to give a shout out to Robert Rose coming home P17 tonight, actually, but the only driver in the entire field with a 0x. That is not easy to do here at Suzuka. And in closing, join us here again Wednesday night, April 19th at 9:25 p.m. Eastern for the sport class. We'd like to thank our sponsors for Series 10, the Porsche Exchange and Six Sigma Sim Racing. A big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, and a huge thanks to our team tonight, Rachel, Ryan, Cameron, and Dougie. Also, none of this is possible without those behind the scenes at Podium Esports, Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joey Atterbury, and I'll see you on the track.